Xuangan Ji is a magical novel, in which the 5 countries of Chudi, Huaxia, Zhongli, Youyi, Zhulan, and Zhulan are completely fictional. The human kingdom is Chudi Huaxia, the elf kingdom is Youyi, the monster kingdom is Zhongli, and the demon kingdom is composed of 12 states, while Zhulan is a divine kingdom. According to legend, in the early stages of the continent composed of these 5 countries, the heavenly emperor created the Hun Xuan according to his own image. Hun Xuan has a similar appearance to humans and various divine powers and spells bestowed by the heavenly emperor. The heavenly emperor originally intended for Hun Xuan to control the 6 realms of gods, demons, ghosts, and monsters in the world. However, Hun Xuan possesses both good and evil qualities, and it is unclear whether it was due to Emperor Tian's negligence or deliberate creation of Hun Xuan. Later, Hun Xuan refused to obey the control of the heavenly emperor, and the heavenly emperor created Hun Xuan without any means to destroy it. Unfortunately, the heavenly emperor had no choice but to use the heavenly sword to split Hun Xuan into 2. One was Qi Xuan, who represented knowledge, truth, selflessness, truth, goodness, beauty, and justice. One is Hunyuan, who represents selfishness, arrogance, arbitrariness, jealousy, cruelty, and many other evils. Feilu Novel Network reminds you that this novel and its characters are purely fictional. If there are any similarities, they are purely coincidental and should not be imitated. 1. The Pursuit of Evil Spirits. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The world is vast and boundless, and the great road stretches through ancient and modern times. At some point in time, humans, gods, demons, ghosts, and monsters have jointly dominated the world from ancient times to the present. After the chaos between humans and demons in ancient times, they agreed not to invade each other, divided the world into 5 kingdoms. The human kingdom Huaxia, the chieftain, the spirit and monster kingdom Zhongli, the elf kingdom Youyi, the divine kingdom Zhulan, and the demon kingdom Gui. Huaxia kingdom is bordered by the Emerald kingdom to the west, separated by a large river swamp in the middle. Zhongli kingdom is located in the northern part of China, with half of the year being a cold season. At the border with China, there are towering mountains and towering city walls. Zhulan kingdom is located in the vast sea to the east, facing the other 5 countries across the sea. Its residents are mostly monks and practitioners, who seek immortality through enlightenment. Youyi kingdom is adjacent to the southern part of Huaxia kingdom, separated from it by a huge valley with only a few steep mountain ranges connected. The border passes between the 2 countries are guarded by military soldiers. The demon kingdom is located between China and Zhongli, with a vast territory. The 12 states that make up the demon kingdom are widely distributed with deserts, wastelands, shrubs, and forests. The demon kingdom is entangled in a river of flames, surging day and night. Huaxia is located in the central region, the most prosperous, with lush forests and continuous mountain ranges. Countless rare animals and tall ancient trees grow in the mountains, with numerous rivers and lakes. The river water is green and winding, blending into the eastern sea. A large Ilo river winds and turns eastward at the southern end of China, flowing into the sea. The land on both sides of the river bank is vast and fertile. The river flows through Chongqing Province, a province in southeastern China. The capital of Chongqing Province is Ninghua City, and the Ilo River flows through the cliff opposite Ninghua City. Ninghua City is a remote place in China, with vast land nourished by the Ilo River and very fertile, and a thriving population. Today in Ninghua City, as before, the streets are bustling with people, shops are arranged in rows, and signs can be seen everywhere. The sound of shouting and selling is endless, and people setting up stalls, selling, and performing arts are busy with their own businesses on both sides of the street, creating a bustling and prosperous scene. An old man walked leisurely on one of the busiest streets in the city. He was in his 50s, dressed in luxurious clothing and a smile on his face, looking very happy and comfortable. He was a scholar who had read extensively in his youth, and now he is also a respected gentry in the local area, surnamed Li Mingche. Li Cheben had 3 sons, and the first 2 of them both passed the martial arts examination. Unfortunately, their fate was unpredictable. Both sons died in the war between the 2 countries of China and the Di, sacrificing their lives for the country. Now Li Che has only 1 son under his knee, named Yunbin and Yuebai. Li Yuebai is extremely handsome, and he never forgets his reading. He is knowledgeable and has learned swordsmanship since childhood. He is sturdy and robust, and has the courage of countless men. Some of his poems and articles have been passed down to China. Li Che, considering that both of his sons were conscripted as generals by the imperial court due to winning the military examination and died in battle, only hoped that Li Yuebai, the only young man, would take the path of officialdom from literature and follow the same path as his grandfather Li Kai. He would become an official in the capital, stay away from the war, marry and have children, and continue the popularity of the Li family. As the day of the imperial examination in the capital approaches, Li Yuebai has already won the top spot in the provincial examination. If he goes to the capital for scientific research, he will naturally be able to win the gold medal. At the thought of this, Li Che was very happy and walked out of the mansion to stroll and relax on the streets. Suddenly, there was a commotion, and not far ahead was a flag waving. A group of people gathered around, as if watching the excitement, blocking Li Che's path. Knowing the heavens, the earth, and the ghosts and gods is considered auspicious or inauspicious. Marriage and future are all predetermined, and wealth and status are divided. A shout came from the crowd. "Sir, how about you help me calculate my destiny?" an old man asked. "Whether it's worth it or not." My guest didn't listen carefully either. "Whether it's young or old." "What's your age?" "Sir, can you see what kind of family my daughter will marry in the future?" the old woman asked again. "No, no. You are also a fool. If you don't listen to me, men are lucky or unlucky, women are not. You are such a strange person. There is no one who is picky about fortune-telling. They are afraid that there will be fewer fortune-tellers. It's not good of you to be picky about fat and thin. You either have free time to entertain us or go crazy. When it comes to fortune-telling, one must also talk about fate. It's hard to force it. I've always been like this. If I can't calculate accurately and make a slight mistake, I'll compensate you 100 taels of silver. If you're not convinced, come and try it out. Everyone will prove it. Calculating once only requires 2 taels of silver, it's not expensive, the person exclaimed loudly. Upon hearing this, Li Che immediately thought that his son would go to the capital palace for an examination. He didn't know how many grades he would pass. According to the fortune teller, his son Li Yuebai fulfilled his request. He pondered and said, "This fortune teller even talks about conditions. Perhaps he is really an expert. Why not give it a try and see how my son Yuebai's future in the palace examination is?" The old man leaned forward and crawled through the human wall. He saw an old man dressed in quail clothes and looking like a beggar, sitting on a tattered straw mat with a flag behind him, which was a fortune-telling outfit. The old man was blind in one eye, skinny and bony, with a withered face and a withered head, resembling a skeleton. He kept looking up and down at Li Che with his only remaining eye, frightening him to the point where his heart skipped a beat. "Do you want to calculate for yourself or for others?" asked the old man who accounted for the calculation. "Calculate for my son, he is about to go to Beijing to take the exam." "Ask about his future," Li Che replied cautiously. "How old is your son?" the old man asked. 9 out of 10 this year, belonging to the dragon genus. "You sure Xingren, right?" "Ah. How did you know?" Li Che was very surprised. "Of course I know everything from the present to the future. If there are any mistakes, just cut down the flags behind me and drive me out of Ninghua City." Zhanan, the old man, looked slightly arrogant. "If you calculate for me, there will be rewards." Li Che heard him say this and felt that the old man in front of him was a true expert in calculation. Hun Xuan was originally a side skill passed down by the Chinese Zun, but few people truly excel in this art, and most rely on deception to make a living. Not too much, the silver given is enough for an old man to have a meal and drink. The old man said as he took out a few yarrows and arranged them with turtle shells from a cloth bag beside him. Li Che rearranged several yarrows and a piece of turtle shell as instructed by the old man. "Ah! It's a disaster," said the old man. "What does the old man say?" Li Che was surprised after hearing this, not realizing that his only remaining child was also in danger. "Your son will suffer a bloody disaster within a few months." "Ah! What should we do then? This is all I have left under my knee, and I hope you can help me, sir." Li Che pleaded. "Don't panic, I'll give you something. Take it home and hang it under your father's bedroom window. After a month, it will resolve the disaster." The old man took out an item from his cloth bag. Li Che took this object and saw a silver-glazed mirror on the ground. The mirror is crystal clear and shiny as new, not only very valuable, but also extraordinary. "Sir, how dare I easily store such a valuable item?" Li Che felt uneasy. "Just accept it, and once it helps you relieve the disaster, I will retrieve it myself. Your son is a talented Qilin and deserves this item, making it." Mr. Zhang said with a smile. "Thank you, sir. Then I'll accept it. By the way, there's something I don't know how to ask or not ask." "What's up?" "Just ask, if I can help you, I'll do it." "Sir, you have clever strategies, but why do you live a life of wind, food, camping, and wandering around?" Li Che was somewhat skeptical. It was unusual for such a poor and destitute person to have such a precious mirror. "Ah, I don't like what you say anymore. How can I judge me from a vulgar perspective? I have always enjoyed being carefree and happy, with the sky as my bed, the moon as my friend, and the fresh breeze as my companion. I have no right to be bound by fame and stay away from the traps of wealth and lust. Forget it, I won't be fooling you anymore. Talking too much like you is in vain. If you believe it, take the mirror and reward me with 2 taels of silver to buy wine. If you don't believe it, give the mirror back to me. If your future is unexpected, don't regret it." Mr. Zhang was a little angry. "Mister, I misunderstood. How dare I underestimate you? Since that's the case, I will follow what you always said. If my son is safe and sound the next day, I will definitely thank you very much." "Thank you again, there's no need. I will retrieve this mirror tomorrow." Ha! Encounter the Divine Lord on the second road. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Li Che took the glass mirror, handed the silver to the old man Xuangan, carried the precious mirror, and bid farewell to return to his mansion. Returning to the mansion, the old man and his wife explained the situation and decided to hang the glass mirror under the window of Li Yuebai's room to avoid disasters and evil spirits. Li Yuebai was busy studying and preparing to take the imperial examination in Beijing. For these strange actions of her parents, she just shook her head and smiled, letting them toss and turn. A few more days later, it was the day to worship the venerable Qiumen of China. Qiumen was one of the 6 elders who followed Emperor Yuhua to defeat the Hunyuan demon lord. He was the founder of the Chinese virtue and patriarch. The 6 scriptures he wrote were mandatory subjects for Chinese scholars to study and become officials. On this day, Li Yuebai, like thousands of Chinese students, brought sacrificial silver coins and rode with a child servant to a temple outside Ninghua City to worship the venerable Qiu. They went to pay homage to their ancestors and also sought good luck for the imperial examination in Beijing. The master and servant rode on horses along a rugged mountain road outside Ninghua City. As they arrived at the temple, a Buddhist monk suddenly stopped them. This traveler was almost in his 70s, wearing a tattered cloth robe covered in stains, with a withered and old face, but stood still like a pine tree, looking spirited and vigorous, with bright eyes and imposing demeanor. "Hi. You doll, I've walked a long way to Ninghua City and I don't have much silver left. Can you give me some alms?" The old man spoke rudely and shouted loudly to Li Yuebai. "Where did you come from, young master? Don't pay attention to him, let's continue on our journey." The servant next to him reminded Li Yuebai. "I see this old man alone, as if he has walked a long way, he must be very tired. He must be a member of the Buddhist teachings, and he must have no children. This reminds me of my old father. Everyone grows old, and everything is difficult when we grow old. How can we sit idly by?" Li Yuebai said, flipping over and dismounting, with a humble expression, approaching the old man. "Old man, I went to the Chumeng temple in the outskirts of the city today to pay my respects. I didn't have much silver on me, only 5 taels of silver. If you don't mind it, just take it, can you?" Li Yuebai looked very respectful. You didn't read this doll's book in vain. You really have a kind heart, good doll." The old man smiled with relief. Li Yuebai took out the silver from her arms and handed it to the old man. The old man did not refuse, so he accepted it. Li Yuebai turned around and was about to leave when the old man suddenly shouted, "Baby, come back now. I smell a demonic aura on you. I'm afraid it's those dirty things from the demon clan." "Ah. What does the old man say?" "My father just begged for a future for the younger generation and invited something to ward off evil spirits." Li Yuebai truthfully explained to him about his encounter with an old man named Xuangan on the street and giving him a precious mirror to ward off evil spirits. The traveler laughed and said, "I see. It seems that the mirror came from a bad person, and the good person didn't come. I also have a treasure here that I want to give to you. Wait and see." After he opened his palm, a golden shield appeared in his hand. Inside the shield, there was a long sword painted on it, and several Qi dragons coiled around the long sword. "Excuse me, senior, is this?" Li Yuebai asked. "This is a divine artifact that created heaven and earth. It is a treasure left over from the ancient Qi Xian War. I am a descendant of the Zhulan people's teachings, with the Dharma name of Qingshu. I was entrusted by my master and the heavenly emperor, and only those who are destined to meet me. Take it and hide it on your body. Even if that demon comes knocking at you, there is nothing they can do. I will ensure your safety. Don't touch the glass mirror at home, as long as the shield is with you, let's give it a trick." The old man laughed. Ah. It turns out that the old man was actually Zhulan, the divine deity who had traveled here. How could he be late born? He was truly ashamed and frightened. Li Yuebai quickly knelt down in front of the old man, and the accompanying child servants knelt down to the ground. The old man said, "I know that the young master's surname is Li, his name is Yubai, and his courtesy name is Yunbin. He was born during the Yushi period and is a rare hero. I kindly ask the young master to cherish it more." The Hunyuan demon head searched all over the world to find Qi Xian's reincarnation spirit. It calculated that Qi Xian's reincarnation time was Yushi, so he sent his minions to search 4 places and coincidentally found your home. This Xian shield seal must not be left for a moment. On the night of the full moon this month, there must be ferocity and evil. This object was born in the creation world, but although it can protect you from being injured by demons and monsters, it is still dangerous to humans. Clan swords and soldiers, but powerless. After experiencing various hardships, the young master's heart will naturally merge with it. In the future, he will help you eliminate demons and protect the safety of all beings in the 6 realms. Remember, when encountering orchids, you will rise, when encountering ping, you will be confused, the beauty of gold and luxury will eventually have no share. The old man continued to smile and said, "The heavenly way is mysterious and distant, beyond speculation. Although evil spirits may show temporary power, they will eventually be conquered by righteousness, and their demise is foreseeable. Let's bid farewell to you and me." As he finished speaking, he turned into a cloud and disappeared without a trace. Li Yuebai and the young servant bowed to the clouds. After a long time, Fang stood up and both of them jumped onto their mounts, continuing their journey. Li Yuebai is a young scholar with excellent writing skills. He is kind-hearted and righteous, and has two major hobbies: reading and swordsmanship. Reading extensively in the classics and history, adhering to the moral and benevolent teachings of the Venerable Qiu Meng, never forgetting to read, writing, exuding a noble demeanor. The swordsmanship is meticulously studied in ancient Yuhua's swordsmanship, with a total of 64 movements, featuring extraordinary transformations and endless mysteries. The swordsmanship is both strong and gentle, and the speed of use is unparalleled, as if entering and exiting invisibly. Li Yuebai was born into a family of poems and books with hairpins and tassels. He was skilled in writing, humble, and refined. He did not like to interact with the playboys in the city, and the scoundrels in the market often laughed at him behind his back, saying that he had ruined his rich family background and wealthy family background, and did not know how to enjoy himself in a timely manner. There was a constant stream of suitors coming to the door, and Li Yuebai always rejected the matchmaker's request because his studies had not yet become a reason. In fact, he had already had a crush. After paying homage to Master Qiu Meng, Li Yuebai and his servants returned to the mansion to continue studying day and night, only waiting to go to the capital to take the exam. The old Buddhist monk always remembered his words and hid the shield in his arms, waiting only for the night of the full moon to come. 3. Night War Evil Spirits. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Night falls, a full moon slowly climbs up the mountain, and everything is silent. At 3 o'clock, the high hall had already fallen asleep, and Li Yuebai pretended to be asleep alone in the bedroom, occasionally cleverly gazing at the glass mirror hanging in front of the window. Suddenly, a fluorescence shot out from the mirror, and something flew into the window following the light in the mirror. This thing is like a big brown bird, quietly flying into the room, with a head like a skull and a blood-red tongue that keeps stretching and retracting, looking very frightening. The monster suddenly spread its arms, and its body suddenly swelled several zhang. It quietly approached Li Yuebai, and its bloody tongue shot like lightning towards her forehead. Li Yuebai was already prepared, flipped over and jumped up, and shouted sternly, "Monster, look at the sword." The lightning flashed and a sword struck at this monster. With a loud bang, the flames shot fiercely, and the demon countered the long sword with an iron chopstick. It hoarsely said, "The Lord sent me to search for you. After countless hardships, I finally found you. Where are you running?" The monster's iron chopsticks turned into an iron rod in an instant and hit Li Yuebai with its head. Li Yuebai lifted her horizontal sword and jumped out of the window into the courtyard. The monster also followed closely. The two swords were intertwined, one was dancing like the wind, and the other was shining like a rainbow, ping-pong jingling, forming a ball. Strangely, it was the maids and servants in the mansion, and all the relatives remained motionless. Unexpectedly, no one heard the fierce battle. Under the strange moonlight, Li Yuebai's strength gradually weakened as he fought bravely. Suddenly, the demon's iron rod split in half and smashed it into Li Yuebai's ribs. Li Yuebai was caught off guard and was hit by an iron rod in the right rib. His body flew several zhang away, bleeding from his mouth and unable to move for a moment. Fortunately, he was well prepared and wore the ancestral jade lock armor, which did not harm his life. The monster approached and cast a spell to remove the glass mirror under the window. It was thrown into the air and flipped over in mid-air. It grinned and said, "The matter that the Lord instructed me to do is over. Today, I will bring your soul into the mirror and offer it to the Lord." After it finished speaking, it turned its precious mirror into Li Yuebai's eyes, waiting to retrieve her soul. Li Yuebai muttered to herself, "Ah. This life is on hold." A golden light shot out of Wu Di's arms, and the shield flew out, shining brightly inside the room. The demon was startled and quickly retreated, looking up at the shield and exclaiming, "What is this? Our family wants to see it today." The shield suddenly stretched out a meter wide, shining brightly. The monster quickly cast off its precious mirror, jumped up and swung its iron rod towards the shield. The shield did not dodge and pressed down like a mountain. The iron rod was instantly melted by the light emitted by the shield, turning into a bright red molten iron and splashing onto the ground, making a hissing sound. The monster retreated back, but before it could strike again, a Qi dragon flew out of its shield, covered in a bright red color. In a blink of an eye, it flew to the demon's body. The demon saw that it was not doing well and wanted to fly away, but it was too late. The flying dragon coiled the monster tightly and kept shrinking. After hearing a scream, a golden light flashed, and neither the flying dragon nor the demon could be seen. The shield suddenly turned back into a shield badge and flew into Li Yuebai's palm. There was only a pool of black blood left on the ground, and the precious mirror lay quietly on the ground, with a strange cold light flickering under the half-melted iron rod moonlight. Li Yuebai endured the excruciating pain under her ribs, took the shield and seal into her arms, stumbled over, picked up the precious mirror, and looked at it. I saw in the mirror that I was totally different, with long hair and a jade-like face, and a red mole the size of a water drop on my left face, looking very handsome and elegant. Li Yuebai muttered to herself, "Is this me?" In a moment of hesitation, the mirror suddenly became dark and unclear, revealing a scene of a dilapidated palace. Everywhere was a sea of flames, like hell. Suddenly, a stunning woman's face appeared in the mirror, her angry eyes wide open, and she exclaimed hysterically in a chilling male voice, "I've been looking for you for a long time. We haven't finished our previous accounts yet. You want me to sink into the underworld forever? No way. And you, the heavenly emperor, you're in vain. I'll return to the Yang realm, and we'll settle the accounts together." Li Yuebai was shocked and didn't know what she was talking nonsense about. Suddenly, an incredibly loud cry came from her heart. "Destroy this mirror quickly, or the demon will find you again." A scream came from the mirror. "Heavenly Emperor!" Li Yuebai picked up the iron rod and swung it to smash the mirror into pieces. The precious mirror shattered into thousands of pieces, like a ball of fireworks under the moonlight, flying and scattering. There was another pain coming from below the right rib, and Li Yuebai suddenly woke up. The bright moon outside the window is still quiet and bright, shining silver on the ground. In the courtyard, there is a gentle breeze blowing and bamboo shadows swaying. Above the white wall, the glass precious mirror under the window has long disappeared without a trace. Li Yuebai secretly said, "Is everything just a dream?" He stood up quietly, carrying a lantern and patrolling the courtyard. Sure enough, he found a pool of black blood on the ground, with a foul smell, but the half-iron rod was missing. "Not good!" he exclaimed in surprise, realizing that the shield and badge in his arms were missing. I hurriedly searched around, but in the end, I saw the shield badge embedded in the sheepskin white jade of the sword hilt, as if it were made in heaven. The other side knew that, as the traveler on the way said, it was a demon who came to ask for details, but the traveler had already disappeared and had no choice but to give up. Li Yuebai has a close friend named Chen Mingfan. Li Yuebai is 1 year older than him, and his father is a local gentry who is a close friend of Li Yuebai's old father. Before Chen Fan was born, the two families agreed that if they had a daughter, they would marry through their fingertips. If it's a man, it's a brother. The two of them were like-minded and studied under the same school, even the swordsmanship was taught by Master Kong. However, Chen Fan is more passionate about his career and economy, likes to comment on the heroic figures of the 6 realms of ancient and modern times, likes to talk about the cause of king hegemony, and often feels that he is born out of time to help the world. He is also unruly by nature, occasionally hanging out with the scoundrels in the market, acting chivalrous and righteous. Those scoundrels even admire him and willingly recognize him as their elder brother. As mentioned earlier, Li Yuebai already has a crush, but it has not been explicitly stated yet. This beloved is Chen Fan's younger sister, named Bing Qian. Not only does this girl have a beautiful and charming appearance, with a stunning appearance, but she is also spiritually intelligent and has excellent music and painting skills. Li Yuebai often goes to the Chen mansion to have banquets with Chen Fan and compose poetry, and Bing Qian has long been enamored with Li Yuebai. As I grow older and my love affair begins to unfold, I often listen to these men's eloquence after the banquet screen, and I particularly enjoy listening to Li Yuebai's excellent piano playing. Later, after finishing the painting, he pestered his brother and asked Li Yuebai to compose poetry for the painting. Chen Fan chuckled and understood his sister's thoughts. Li Yuebai admires this talented and beautiful sister, and is always writing poetry and painting. The two of them come and go, secretly harboring feelings. In a few months, Li Yuebai will be going to Beijing for an exam. The itinerary is unpredictable, and Chen Fan is calculating that Li Yuebai will definitely make the high school gold medal. Why not settle for this marriage before he rises to the top? After all, Li Gongzi is a person with a graceful demeanor and excellent talent. If he is taken over by the prestigious royal family in the capital, it will not disappoint his sister's thoughts. I then discussed with my parents and invited Li Yuebai to come to the mansion for a banquet, while also informing him of this matter before formally proposing marriage to his parents. 4. Preliminary determination of marriage. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. The night is hazy, the moon is gentle and the wind is gentle. The Chen mansion is brightly lit, and everyone has prepared wine, food, tea, and meals early. The door came to announce that Li Yuebai had arrived at the Chen mansion. He stopped at the entrance of the Chen mansion on a jujube red strong horse and jumped down. He was dressed in a white robe like snow, with a face like the mid-autumn festival moon. He carried a long sword on his waist and arrived in a graceful manner. It was Li Yuebai. Chen Fan quickly welcomed him and said, "Big brother will go to Beijing immediately. I am deeply sorry that I cannot accompany you far away. I would like to invite Big Brother to our mansion for a banquet to see him off. Please come inside quickly." Li Yuebai and his followers followed Chen Fan across a small bridge, through a corridor, and into the hall. In the lobby of the Chen mansion, guests each sat down, chatting happily, drinking wine and discussing the Tao. The sea and mountains were intertwined with treasures, singing and dancing with Sheng and Huang, mixed with Chen in front. As Jiaxing Jinnong liquor was about to reach its peak, Chen Fan stood up and said, "Ladies and gentlemen, we all know that Brother Yuebai is proficient in music, and we are fortunate enough to hear him play occasionally when we gather here. It is truly a heavenly sound. Today, my little sister learned that Brother Yuebai is going to Beijing for a test. On the one hand, I admire Brother Li's talent, and on the other hand, I wish him a safe journey and a successful return. Tonight, I will show my piano skills, and I also invite Brother Yuebai and all of you to appreciate it. I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude." Chen Fan clapped his hands, and several young maids crowded out behind the screen. The hall suddenly fell silent, and everyone held their breath and stared at this woman with unparalleled beauty. Let's see her wearing a single phoenix flying bun on her head, a tight-fitting white jade silk belt on her upper body, and a long black silk skirt on her lower body. Her eyes are filled with autumn water, and she is shy, speechless, and affectionate. If the cheeks are slightly red like peach blossoms, there seems to be no smoke eyebrows. Ice skin and jade bones are more beautiful than Xuanwan, and the whole body is adorned with exquisite rings. The lotus sways its beautiful shadow step by step, while the clouds and the moon rest and gaze upon it. The crowd was stunned, and she hugged her pipa and bowed, saying, "Little girl Bing Qian, on this beautiful night, when the nobles gather elegantly, my daughter is not talented. She dares to show her clumsy skills and pay the distinguished guests." She then sat still, playing the qin and singing, Feng Shi has come to the north. If she loses her partner, it will be difficult for her to compete. The Luo River, the Iluo River in China, flows eastward with eternal hatred, and her heart is hurt by this melancholy. Another song goes, how many things did I dream of last night? The jade candle lingers with tears in the moon, and my sorrowful heart lingers on the cloud platform. How many people bid farewell to each other? Goodbye is difficult, but in front of the lamp, I miss the old kindness and wish to pass on my regrets to the green bird. The strings are broken, and the flowers are left behind. Singing again, as soon as you enter the imperial palace, you will step into the green clouds, and 1,000 flowers will dazzle your eyes. Then you will replace the new with the old. The night outside the hall was like water, and the moonlight filled the building. Li Yuebai was extremely happy to see her, as if the hidden affection slowly emerged with the music of the qin. She couldn't help but forget her gaze, and Bing Qian also saw him in the crowd. The two of them exchanged autumn waves, and their feelings continued. Li Yuebai suddenly felt that although the qin songs were beautiful, the lyrics were somewhat sad and melancholic, and a hint of sadness surged in her heart. Among the guests at the banquet, one of them was an old friend of Chen Fan, surnamed Chen Mingjian, who was doing some miscellaneous tasks such as copying money and official documents under the hands of the local magistrate. This person is versatile and skilled at drilling into the camp. Seeing Chen Bingqian's beautiful and charming appearance, he was surprised. His eyes rolled and he was secretly pleased. He wanted to say that this guy had some bad ideas, and he will express them later. At midnight, guests bid farewell one after another, and Chen Fan left Li Yuebai to rest in the attic of the east wing of the backyard. At the same time, he expressed his marriage to Li Yuebai, saying that Yuebai was interested in Bing Qian and was full of joy. After the Golden List High School in the capital, they immediately got married. Chen Fan was naturally overjoyed, and after chatting for a while, he bid farewell and returned to his room to rest. In the deep darkness of the night, Li Yuebai lowered her head and remembered the years of writing poetry and painting with Bing Qian, secretly conveying the melody of their hearts, and the various past experiences they had known each other. She also remembered tonight when she played the piano with deep affection, and her thoughts were difficult to calm. She slowly walked up to the small pavilion on the balcony, admiring the moon alone. On the east side of the pavilion, a person with their back to him was looking up at the starry sky and moon. Li Yuebai was taken aback, it was Bing Qian. Bing Qian noticed someone walking behind her and looked back, feeling surprised. Both sides almost simultaneously said, "Are you here too?" Their tone was faint, as if they had reunited after a long separation. Under the calm tone, there was hidden joy and shyness. Bing Qian said, "As soon as the young master goes to the capital, I don't know when he will be able to return. You should go with peace of mind, you don't have to worry about me." Li Yuebai sighed and said, "Why have I ever cared about fame and fortune? I would rather live a simple life with you here. It's just that I rely on my father's high hopes to achieve fame and fortune, and his family will feel at ease. Wait for me to come back." Upon hearing these words, tears flashed in Bing Qian's eyes and she let out a soft sigh, "Ah." Kyoto is a beautiful and prosperous place, a gentle and prosperous hometown, and the gates of emperors and nobles are as deep as the sea. "I'm afraid." Li Yuebai quickly interrupted and said lightly, "You know my brother's intentions. I'm afraid there's no other person in this world who can better understand my sister's thoughts. I'm not like this in your heart. Over the years, you haven't known my intentions towards you." Li Yuebai took out a pair of jade jewels from her arms and said, "These jade jewels have always been with me. This token is given to my sister, and you can keep it by your side. If you miss me and look at it, it will be like I am by your side. My heart will not change." Bing Qian took Yujue and placed it in her hand to examine. Under the moonlight, it shone brightly. Upon closer inspection, a colorful winged pingbird was fluttering high in the air. Bing Qian looked at him with affection and sighed, "Then let me put it on. Brother, don't blame me. Tonight, when I play these songs, I can't help feeling a bit sad. I wait for all living beings, like the floating duckweed in the water, like the flying swallow, to be free. How many others have fulfilled my wishes? When you leave, my heart is always empty and there is no place to rest. No matter what the future may be, my heart is there. After speaking, she raised her hand and pointed to the bright moon in the sky, then leaned against Li Yuebai's chest. The two hugged each other speechless, and without realizing it, the stars moved around after Li Chen's marriage was tentatively arranged. It took more than 20 days in the blink of an eye. Li Yuebai was preparing to stop, followed by two child servants, each riding a green donkey. Li Yuebai, with a delicate coil, rode on a jujube red steed, hanging a sword from his waist, bidding farewell to his family and friends, and looking forward to the smooth journey of the capital. In the scorching summer of integrity, the heat is unbearable. I don't know how many mountains I have climbed or how many rivers I have crossed. The roads are rugged and steep, with few post stations and tall shrubs and weeds along the way. On the day, I listen to birds chirping and apes chirping. At night, I burn fires to drive away wild animals. The herds of animals keep howling, which is chilling. Countless animal eyes are like lamps, floating and wandering in the darkness. 5 adventures along the way. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After a difficult journey for a month, at dusk one day, both the master and servant were exhausted and trying to find a good place to set up a tent for rest. Suddenly, 2 green giant stones squeezed into a trench ahead, and a steep hanging wall could be seen on the left edge of the giant stone. Below the hanging wall was a bay of green pond. Not far away, there is a stone staircase winding upwards. Looking up, a magnificent building and pavilion are built along the steep cliffs, with lights and shadows flickering. White clouds enter the sky, like a fairyland. The master and servant were overjoyed and led their donkeys and horses in their bags, looking towards the building, intending to stay overnight. They tied the donkeys and horses under a tree, and the 3 of them climbed up more than 100 steps. Suddenly, they saw a wide platform, with 2 vermilion-painted doors behind it. On both sides of the platform were several water-spraying stone beasts, which looked very similar to the Qi Xuan, with a majestic and ferocious form. There is a clear pond in front of the stone beast, where fish flock back and forth to play. The banana palm trees by the pond cover it, and the dragon, snake, turtle, and turtle carved on the stone railing by the pond are lifelike. Li Yuebai said to herself, "What a fairyland-like place to go. It's just that these magnificent buildings suddenly emerge from the barren mountains and ridges here, which is quite unusual." The 3 of them walked to the door, and Li Yuebai lightly fastened the doorbell. After a while, a doll's head peeked out from the crack in the door. The doll had a pair of pale big eyes, which looked a bit scary. The doll turned its bean-sized pupils and chuckled, "Oh no. Mother, the distinguished guest. The distinguished guest. Haha. Is here." The baby quickly retracted its head into the door, and the door closed with a loud bang, then there was no movement. After a while, the door creaked open again and an old lady walked out. Li Yuebai bowed to her and explained her intention. The lady led the master and servants into the lobby inside the door, where the bed was clean and fragrant, and the floor was incredibly smooth. Behind the lobby was a row of wing rooms, but below was a steep cliff. Clouds and mist occasionally overflowed through the window. Yubai's right wing sat down, and the 2 servants stood on either side. The grandmother prepared tea and looked up and down at Li Yubai. Her face couldn't hide her excitement, and she smiled mysteriously, saying, "Young master, wait a moment. The master will come in a moment." After a moment, a burst of silver bell-like laughter could be heard from the back hall. "Hi. There's a guest coming from afar. If I had known, I would have personally welcomed them." A woman flashed in from the back hall, clearly hearing that there was still some distance to go before her eyes. It came so quickly. This woman may not be of national beauty, but her eyebrows are full of charm, her almond eyes seem to contain anger, and her whole body is charming and charming. Wearing a set of narrow-sleeved pomegranate clothes on top, pink cloud clothes on the bottom, silk cloud head shoes on the feet, with a smooth gait. The doll who had previously opened the door to deliver messages was following behind. The old lady explained the whole story before and after, and the woman said, "You must have lost your way. Few people have traveled here. I am humble, and I have wronged the young master to rest here for a night. Let's leave tomorrow." Li Yuebai said, "This place is very remote, but your mansion looks so magnificent. Do you have any other relatives at home?" The woman looked sorrowful and said, "Little girl Xuangan, my husband was originally a noble son of a nobleman in the capital. Although he has not been appointed as a marquis, he still has a noble title. However, a few years ago, he followed the king's army to fight in the D kingdom and died on the battlefield. The parents of the little girl and husband have already passed away, and some villains have deceived the little girl, orphan, and widowed mother, coveting land and family wealth, and designed to frame the little girl. The evil thief had great power, and the little girl had no way to sue the official. She couldn't afford to provoke him and had no choice but to sell her land and stay in the wilderness for a peaceful life." Upon hearing this, Li Yuebai was furious and slammed the table fiercely, saying, "How could that be so unreasonable? Lang Lang Qiankuan should have such a thing." Xuangan quickly said, "Young master, there's no need to be angry. It's already a thing of the past. Look, I'm also carefree now." After finishing speaking, she glanced at the long sword on Li Yuebai's waist. Although Li Yuebai has a kind-hearted personality, she is quick-witted and wise in her heart. When talking to Xuangan, she saw her eyebrows and eyes frequently conveying emotions, and her words and actions seemed to have a deterrent effect. Unlike that kind-hearted woman, she couldn't help but feel suspicious and wary. After chatting for a while, Xuangan arranged for dinner. Li Yuebai's master and servants were separated to rest in the bedrooms on both sides of the east wing of the back hall. Li Yuebai lived alone in one room, while the two child servants slept in the bedroom on the south side. As the night fell, Li Yuebai remembered all the recent adventures and the scene of meeting Bing Qian in the attic, mixed with emotions and unable to sleep. In a daze, a figure shuttled in and out of the corridor, occasionally heard the door open and closed, whispering softly. Li Yuebai thought it was a conversation between maids, and thought about the suspicious behavior and expression of Xuangan today. Feeling uneasy, she placed her long sword at the head of the bed, lay down on her side, and fell asleep without realizing it. In her dream, she found herself walking on a ridge, with flames steaming up and down. The sky was dim and gloomy, and countless ferocious demons were crawling under her feet, roaring to approach. Li Yuebai vaguely felt a strong aura surrounding her body, and the demons couldn't approach, roaring hysterically. Li Yuebai climbed up for a long time before finally reaching the summit. Bing Qian stood by the edge of the cliff, holding a long sword with tears on her cheeks. Looking further away, the moon was crimson, as if she had been cut. The moon's blood gushed, staining the sky and the distant mountains, soaking through the clouds. Looking at Bing Qian again, she raised her sword and swung it towards her neck, collapsing to the ground. Li Yuebai was shocked and ran recklessly, risking her own life. She ran forward and picked up Bing Qian, shouting at the top of her lungs, "Why is that so? You can't die. Why did you leave me behind?" Blood spurted out from Bing Qian's neck, instantly staining their skirts red. Suddenly, Bing Qian opened her eyes and said in a eerie and terrifying male voice, "Look carefully who I am, you can't escape." Bing Qian instantly transformed into the appearance of the demon in the night mirror. Li Yuebai panicked and drew her sword to chop at the demon's head. With just a few clicks, clangs, and thugs, Li Yuebai suddenly woke up and saw a masked person wielding a knife in front of her. Li Yuebai raised her sword to defend herself, and within a few moves, she chopped down the person. Li Yuebai held up a lamp and gazed intently. The two masked people on the ground had all passed out of breath. Opening the veils on their faces, Li Yuebai was greatly surprised. The two masked people were the child servant Zhang Wu and Wei Yi. Zhang Wu had already passed away, and the masked person Li Yuebai had killed was Wei Yi. Both of them held a snowy long sword in their hands, and Li Yuebai knew in her dream that she had drawn her sword and struck Zhang Wu. When she woke up, she also beheaded Wei Yi, who was planning to cheat. Li Yuebai was extremely surprised when she suddenly heard a few clicks. The doors and windows were all closed, and gusts of wind blew outside. The grass and trees rustled and swayed incessantly. Xuanyang's seductive voice echoed through the buildings. "You're lucky, kid. You put down your sword first. Why don't you make a good couple with me, Xuanyang, share this beautiful marriage like a paradise in the world, and be a happy fairy?" As a rural woman in the mountains and countryside, I have also heard of the young master's name and admired his character. Even if you achieve fame in the capital, what can you do? People's hearts are at risk. Your sword can eliminate demons, but there is nothing that can do for the world. 6 Mowa Ghost Faces. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Li Yuebai angrily said, "Stop talking nonsense. Are you a shrew who is interested in my sword? Shameless witch, let's make a deal today." Xuanyang said, "You're smart. The thing on your sword hilt is a treasure, I definitely want it. As for you, I want you to become a ghost and accompany me here." "Ha ha ha. You stupid scholar, your servants were all taken by me with silver. They didn't kill you, so you're lucky." As soon as the words were finished, blood seeped from the 4 walls. The snow-white walls were gradually covered by the thick black blood oozing out. Something was swimming in the blood wall, and Li Yuebai raised his sword to cut it off. Suddenly, a white arm stretched out from inside the wall, but he didn't dodge and grabbed the blade of the sword. Li Yuebai's sword blade turned and tilted upwards, chopping back and forth with a few slaps. Sparks shot everywhere, as if chopping at a solid stone. The black blood on the wall suddenly split, and a doll was seen swimming in the wall blood. Its skin was pale as snow, like a fish swimming in the water. The black blood at the swimming spot separated, and it was the doll I had seen before. A pair of white eyes rolled over on his face, flickering with eerie and ominous light. Li Yuebai looked back and jumped onto the bed. Just as she was about to wield her sword again, the Mowa suddenly had a long neck and threw her head out to bite Li Yuebai's face. Li Yuebai dodged sideways, using her sword edge to block her. Her long sword was tightly bitten by the child's head, and she wanted to drag the iron sword into the wall. Li Yuebai only felt that the child's head was extremely powerful and couldn't hold it, so she pulled out her short sword and stabbed the child's neck. Unexpectedly, the neck was soft, white, and slender, as if it were a slippery rope, incredibly tough, and unscathed after being stabbed by a sharp knife. Li Yuebai muttered to herself, "Not good." At the critical moment, she suddenly felt the handle of the sword heat up, and a red light shone all over the room. A fireball rose out of the sword hilt and shield, floating in the air. Countless small flames coiled and curved along the surface of the fireball, and several dragons swam and flickered inside the fireball. With a loud bang, a burst of flames erupted, and the thick black blood surging on the wall dried up in an instant. The room emitted a pungent smell. Suddenly, with a snap sound, the doll fell to the ground, shattering into pieces. The huge baby's head kept rolling and spinning on the ground, revealing a fierce gaze, still glaring fiercely at Li Yuebai. The fireball instantly extinguished and turned into a flash, flying back to the hilt and then back into a shield. Li Yuebai was shocked in her heart and said, unexpectedly, "The shield chapter has such magical power." A mournful cry came from the roof. "You killed my beloved, bloody demon child, I fought with you today." A green halberd pierced down from the roof, and Li Yuebai flipped over to avoid it. A large hole was poked on the roof, and then a long halberd fell down. Li Yuebai saw that she was left inside and could only wait for death. She stepped forward, kicked the window lattice next to her, and then hooked her body onto the eaves of the window, jumping onto the roof. Xuangan held a halberd in her hand, her previously charming expression disappeared, her eyes wide open, and her face full of murderous intent. Before Li Yuebai could stand firm, she struck again with a flash. Li Yuebai bent down to dodge. Xuangan withdrew her weapon blade, muttered something in her mouth, and let out a loud shout. The three-bladed halberd in her hand turned into a three-headed python, and the flying general came over, opening her mouth and biting it. Li Yuebai raised her sword and engaged in a fierce battle with the snake. After more than 10 rounds, the python was beheaded by Li Yuebai with 2 snake heads. As the python gradually fell into the wind, Xuangan turned it back into a single-blade long halberd, took out a blue brocade handkerchief from her arms, threw it up, and shouted, "My lords, kill him for me." The sky and earth suddenly darkened, and dozens of scholars dressed up flew out of the blue handkerchiefs. Just look at these scholars, wearing scarves on their heads, with only a bloody mouth on their faces, full of fangs, holding a weapon that looks like a pen, not a gun, growing 1 foot long. Under the night, the icy rays flicker, and the fingers of these ghostly scholars are like women, gray-white and slender. Li Yuebai saw that the roof was narrow and there were many ghosts, and her strength was weak. She jumped into the courtyard with a single leap. Many ghost and monster scholars followed closely, one of whom was tall and burly, and it let out a long roar. The other ghost scholars had to form a circular formation, holding short spears and stabbing at Li Yuebai in unison. Before the ghosts could stab him with their short spears, Li Yuebai quickly approached a scholar, passed through his crotch, and with a shua, 2 swords, cut off his legs. The scholar looked back and fell, but then climbed up again, connecting the broken leg. In an instant, it automatically healed and remained intact as before. It let out a long howl and rushed forward again. Li Yuebai was startled and leaped, chopping down several ghosts. However, no matter if any part of the scholar's body is cut off, the broken limbs will always return to their original state. Li Yuebai was engaged in a struggle with the 2 ghost scholars in front of her, when another ghost rushed towards her from behind. Li Yuebai complained in her heart, "I don't know when the divine shield will be used to destroy these ghosts." At this moment, he didn't have time to turn around. Li Yuebai stabbed backwards with a backhand sword, only to hear a strange howl. The long sword that was stabbed happened to break the fangs of the ghost scholar. At the entrance, the long sword pierced through the back of his neck. This ghost immediately withered, with its entire skin ulcerating and turning into a pool of green pus, with a foul odor. Li Yuebai was overjoyed and secretly said, "Fang Fang Shui Ko is exactly the life gate of the ghost face book." He danced his long sword into a ball of sword flowers, and the sword light flashed. The blood mouths of all the ghost book students were pierced by the long sword, and soon most of the ghosts were killed. The ghost-faced scholar led by Xuangan stood behind the group of ghosts, sitting cross-legged on a blue stone on the cliff behind the house, trying to drive the ghosts away. Seeing that the ghosts were defeated by Li Yuebai, she let out a loud shout. The ghost-faced scholar led by her suddenly grew several meters in length and strode forward. She raised her gun and looked at Li Yuebai, then swept away. Li Yuebai raised her sword to confront her, and the guns and swords clashed, illuminating the deep night with flames. The big ghost's mouth was wide open, saliva dripped, and a fishy smell rushed towards his face. Li Yuebai pulled out her short blade and stabbed it towards the bloodshed. The big ghost quickly blocked it with her left hand, and the dagger hit the big ghost's palm without bias. Unexpectedly, the big ghost let out a howl of anger, disregarding the pain in his left hand. With one hand, he pressed down the long sword with a short spear, and at the same time, he grabbed the dagger with his injured left hand. Li Yuebai was pinned down by a short gun and couldn't move for a moment. The big ghost turned to look at Xuangan, who was overjoyed and quickly nodded, indicating that it would quickly end Li Yuebai's life. The big ghost bit out the dagger that had been stabbed into his palm, and his 5 fingers slowly moved like 5 small white snakes, catching Li Yuebai's face. Li Yuebai saw the shield seal fall into the hands of the big ghost, but there was still no movement and she couldn't turn her body for a moment. I think it's hard to escape this calamity, only waiting for death. As soon as the big ghost fingers grabbed it, the long sword suddenly burst out with a faint blue arc light, shooting into the air with a whoosh sound, rapidly piercing through the chest and abdomen of the ghostly scholars. With a loud bang, Li Yuebai opened her eyes and saw the sword lying quietly at her feet, shield Zhang Yanyan shining brightly. And the group of ghostly scholars remained motionless, frozen in place. Li Yuebai quickly picked up the long sword beside her and stabbed the stiff and motionless ghost in front of her, smashing it to pieces. The other ghosts also turned into countless pieces and fell to the ground with a loud bang. 7-star old demon. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Li Yuebai was waiting to search for Sanyang when she suddenly felt the ground tremble incessantly. The earth shook like a mountain, and a huge sound of water currents churned from the deep pool below. A light and shadow shook up from the vortex of the deep pool, and a thunderous roar sounded in the air. Where are you, children? Dare to act wild here, take your life. Li Yuebai looked up and saw a monster flying over the sky. It was like a huge and incomparable eel, shining with silver all over its body. There were 7 head-sized cheek holes on each side of its body, a round mouth, and a mouth full of snow-white sharp teeth, like a razor. It kept spinning and making a click sound. This giant monster kept flapping its wings on both sides, its eyes red and furious. Before Li Yuebai could draw her sword, the 7-star flying eel electrocuted and pecked at her. Li Yuebai leaped back and dodged a blow with a golden tamarin hanging upside down maneuver. With a loud bang, Li Yuebai was pecked out of a deep pit where she stood before, and sand and soil splashed everywhere. If there was a slight hesitation just now, my body would definitely be pecked off by my waist. At the moment when his soul was still in shock, the 7-star eel pecked at him again. Li Yuebai rolled over on the spot, turned back with a sword, and watched as the monster's big mouth slashed away. The monster did not avoid it, and with a duck sound, it seemed like it was chopping on a rotten wooden stake, and the 7-star eel was unharmed. In the midst of lightning and fire, the 7-starred eel opened its mouth like a large snake, sweeping towards Li Yuebai again. Li Yuebai saw an ancient tree behind her and quickly flipped over to dodge behind it. With a few clicks, the 7-star flying eel immediately bit the ancient tree into several pieces with its sharp teeth in its mouth. Li Yuebai muttered to herself, this monster is so easy to deal with. If it weren't for the Xuangan divine shield casting spells to help me, it would be more ominous than good. However, the long sword in her hand remained motionless. Li Yuebai thought to herself, this treasure seems to be telepathic and won't cast spells unless it's in a critical moment. I'll do my best to fight it first. The head of the 7-starred eel is high, the front abdomen is slightly swollen, the blade teeth are closed, and it is about to make a jet shape. Li Yuebai had guessed 8 or 9 points, quickly put away her sword, leaped forward, and a green light shot out from the mouth of the 7-starred eel. A ball of green saliva sprayed onto the wild grass and shrubs, instantly emitting black smoke, and all the plants withered and rot. This monster spewed out venom, intending to poison Li Yuebai. Li Yuebai didn't wait for it to strike again. He quickly drew out the short blade, leaped forward, and stabbed it into the teeth of the 7-star eel's blade. He tightly grasped the handle of the blade, flipped over, and jumped onto the monster's head. The 7-star eel was in excruciating pain, making a hissing sound, constantly shaking its head. Li Yuebai tightly wrapped her legs around the neck of the 7-star eel, allowing her to swing her body and stab her left eye with a sword. Seeing the tip of the sword approach, the 7-starred eel's eyes suddenly closed, and the long sword seemed to hit the hard and thick bark. More than 10 strange fish suddenly flew out of the gill holes on both sides of the 7-starred eel. The strange fish had a slender body, like a golden ribbon, floating and flying. The strange fish opened their mouths, revealing sharp teeth, and frantically rushed towards Li Yuebai. Li Yuebai swung her sword and cut off several strange fish. There were more and more strange fish constantly darting out of the seven-star eel's gill hole, and the situation became increasingly dangerous. Li Yuebai was a bit anxious, and if this continued, it would be difficult to resist. I thought to myself, Xuangan Divine Shield, help me quickly. If I keep going like this, I'm afraid I won't be able to hold on anymore. The Xuangan Divine Shield was aware of Li Yuebai's intentions. The hilt shook and a purple-red neon light shot out from the hilt, reaching the tip of the sword. The long sword is like a purple cloud divine sword. A purple light flashed down, and Li Yuebai swung a sword towards the corner of the monster's mouth. The blood of the seven-star eel was immediately cut off, and blood spurted wildly. The strange fish that had been flying in the air fell one after another. Li Yuebai then stabbed the seven-star eel's head with a sword, and the fish, which was more than 10 zhang long, collapsed to the ground in an instant, suffocating and dying. Li Yuebai pulled out the short blade from the mouth of the seven-star eel, and the purple light in the sword disappeared suddenly. After the long sword was sheathed, he continued to look around in search of Xuangan. Xuangan walked up from below the distant stone platform and shouted loudly, "Young master, there's no need to fight anymore. I have something to say." Li Yuebai was startled and whispered, "This witch has many tricks and tricks. You still need to be careful. Let's see what she's up to." Li Yuebai strode forward, and the long halberd in Xuangan's hand was long gone, but it had been replaced by a snowblade steel knife. There was no anger or hatred at all, tears filled her cheeks, and a surprised expression appeared on her face. Li Yuebai was very strange. Xuangan knelt on both knees with a thud and raised her long sword over the head, saying, "A crude and foolish woman who has eyes but does not recognize noble people has offended many. A lowly woman who knows her guilt is deep is willing to be judged by the young master." Li Yuebai laughed heartily and said, "What are you using as a witch? Hurry up and let's quickly settle here. Don't be any more cunning." Xuangan said with tears in her eyes, "I am a good woman, but unfortunately, my fate is bleak. I have become a lonely and wild ghost in this place. It is truly a matter of immense helplessness and indescribable." Upon hearing her words, Li Yuebai felt even more puzzled and asked, "Why are you helpless and aggrieved? Why did you design to incite child servants to harm me at night and plot my sword? Just now, weren't those demons all summoned by your method?" Xuangan sighed and said, "The little girl has already passed away. The fish monster that the young master killed just now is the master of this place. The little girl is just acting under orders. She has been lonely since childhood, born into a poor farming family, and encountered natural disasters. Seeing that her family's livelihood cannot be maintained, her parents are extremely helpless. They sell the little girl to others, and then she is sold to brothels in the market, experiencing the warmth and coldness of the world, and being bullied by guests. She smiles all day long, and at night, she cries to herself." One day, a Xiangong arrived who was also charming and charming. In the hall, he only listened to the little girl playing and singing, without any other requests. In this way, the little girl secretly developed feelings for him, and he treated her kindly in every way possible. The Xiangong redeemed his young daughter and brought her home. He said he had never married and his parents had died early. The little girl was lonely and helpless, so she engaged in a private marriage with him. Later on, the couple lived in harmony and lived a peaceful life. Later on, my husband went to the capital to try and achieve fame. He came back to pick up my daughter and went to the capital together. We drove in a sedan to a deep stream of green mountains. My husband and daughter got off the car to rest. They didn't want to know the face but not the heart. Painting a person and a tiger is difficult to draw bones. His heart was like a snake and a scorpion. When my daughter was not prepared, he pushed me down from the green peak into the deep pool, and my daughter became a vengeful soul in the water. Unexpectedly, being a ghost means not being free, and being imprisoned by the 7-star-old demon at the bottom of the pond. The 7-star-old demon coerced the little girl and seduced passers-by here. She took the opportunity to suck on the flesh and blood of these people. If the little girl disobeys a little, the 7-star monster will torment her with all kinds of wisdom. The little girl has nowhere to escape, and the primordial spirit has been sealed in the rainbow soul locking cup at the bottom of the pond by this 7-star monster. If she disobeys her, she will destroy the primordial spirit, and there will be no reincarnation forever. Li Yuebai listened to her mournful crying, not as if she had a deceitful heart. With a heart of compassion, she softened her tone and asked, "Okay, I'll believe what you said for now. What are the origins of the bloody demon child and ghost-faced scholar who fought against me tonight?" Xuangan said, "The blood-bathing demon child is a child who died in the belly of a little girl. He deeply hates his biological father for not caring about his flesh and blood, killing us mother and son. His resentment is condensed, and he cannot be a ghost in life. His soul is locked by the 7-star monster, and he accompanies me all day long. The ghost-faced scholars are all the ghosts of past scholars, and they are often seduced by the little girl with their beauty. Even if they are not greedy for beauty, they are also those who are greedy for power, fame, and wealth. The husband of the little girl is also a scholar. The little girl hates these scholars, most of whom are righteous and ungrateful. Otherwise, how could the little girl be so miserable?" 8 Righteous Peers. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After finishing speaking, Xuangan burst into tears, then suddenly looked up and stared ahead with tears streaming down her face, saying, "If you're a scholar, kill one, kill two, kill a pair." Li Yuebai felt a chill in her heart upon hearing this. Although she sympathized with Xuangan's plight, she did not agree with her prejudices toward scholars. Her tone was slightly teasing and she asked, "I am also a scholar. Why didn't you fight to the death with me? How did you mention your past experiences?" Xuangan sneered and said, "If it weren't for something strange that I had encountered before, I would have fought to the death with you today no matter what. I had been ordered by the 7-star monster to turn into a village woman and travel. Along the way, I met an old man with a white head and snow eyebrows. As soon as the ghost looked at him, we knew he was not an ordinary person and avoided him from afar. Unexpectedly, he went crazy and followed me to death. At first, the little girl just ignored me. He murmured behind me, 'Look at you, you were a good person before you passed away. You have been coerced by demons and have done many heinous things. I didn't want to meddle in anything, you. Ben Xian is a good person. If you want to escape from the demon cave in the future, just listen to me talk a few words first.' He said this, but when it came to my daughter's heart, I stopped and listened to him talk. The old man said, 'Stay calm and wait for the opportunity. The young man who can break your 3 spells and kill the 7-star monster will be your savior. However, you must give this item to him.' After speaking, the old man took out a jade box from his arms and asked the little girl to give it to his future life-saving benefactor. After bidding farewell to the old man, the young woman carefully examined the jade box, but could not open it, so she secretly hid it. Tonight in the battle, after defeating the bloody demon child, Trident Snake Halberd, and Ghost Face Scholar, the little girl suddenly remembered this adventure many years ago, but she still hesitated. The people who have survived the challenge of Bloody Demon Baby in recent years have not yet met. If anyone breaks the level of Ghost-Faced Scholar, the 7-star-old demon who transforms into a grandma will definitely come to him for a decisive battle. The little girl will hide on the side and watch you fight against the 7-star-old demon. Until you kill the 7-star-old demon, the little girl knows that the young master is indeed the benefactor." Li Yuebai let out a long sigh and said, "Ah. You have harmed many innocent people, but for the sake of being coerced by demons, let me spare you this time. Xuangan said, thank you for not killing the young master. The 7-star monster has sealed many ghosts and spirits, such as the little girl, in the 7-colored demon cup. The 7-star old demon was born in the deep underground river, and I don't know when it came here to cause trouble and harm creatures. The buildings here are all made of its methods. If you kill it now, these houses and buildings will become nothing in 3 hours, and the deep pool will also collapse. The soul-locking cup is hidden at the bottom of the pool. In the underwater palace, the young master now has a treasure to protect him, which can slay demons and eliminate them. It's not too late to do so. Hurry up and rescue the little girl and many unjust souls. Li Yuebai said, Xuanyang's background is really miserable. If I don't save you, it's not my fault. Your revenge will be paid with blood in the future. This pool of water is deep and bottomless. With my flesh and blood, even if I have divine shields to protect you, how can I find the 7-star monster's lair and rescue you? Xuanyang, even if you take the opportunity to escape this place, why bother with it? Xuanyang said, young master, you didn't know that the magic cup was powerful. Although the little girl's soul was temporarily free, the ghost guarding the magic cup could still travel through countless rivers and mountains, find the little girl, and catch me back in the cup. It's in vain for you to escape to the ends of the world. Now that the 7-star monster is dead, as long as we find the magic cup, break its power, and destroy the magic cup, the little girl and those souls will be saved. Xuanyang also asked about the origin of Li Yuebai's shield seal. Li Yuebai saw that she was already a dead soul, so she only said that there was a gift from a divine person, without saying much. Upon hearing this, Xuanyang exclaimed in surprise. Xuanyang was eager to break free from the control of the magic cup and said, the little girl often walks around the 7-star old demon. There is a pair of Qingshan Dingshui's stone locks hidden in her first pair of cheeks. After the young master takes it out, the little girl will tell you what to do next. Li Yuebai approached the body of the 7-star monster and stabbed it towards its cheek hole with the blade of her sword. Suddenly, several golden monster fish burst out from inside. Li Yuebai took several swords in succession and killed them all. She continued to stir the fish's gills with the blade of her sword, and indeed found a several-inch thick round stone plate. Li Yuebai carefully picked out the stone plate and washed it clean with stream water. Looking at this pair of stone plates again, they are smooth and delicate, with exquisite fish and dragon patterns carved on them. There are several square protrusions at the edges, which look a bit strange. The two of them found a cable and a greenwood winch in the storage room behind the hall. They tied one end of the cable to a small boat by the pond and the other end to the foot of a stone beast above the cliff, and fixed the winch to the ancient wood by the cliff. Everything was packed up, and the two of them climbed up the mountain gate. At this moment, the dawn was already dim and the sun was rising in the east. Xuanyang held a stone plate and walked under a pair of water-spraying stone beasts. Each stone beast had a circular depression in its mouth. Xuanyang placed the two stone plates separately in the stone groove, and the two fit seamlessly. Xuanyang spun the stone plate, and a rumbling sound faintly came from underground. The sky shook and the earth shook instantly, sand and stones kept rolling down from high places, and the trees in the mountains shook non-stop. Xuanyang shouted, young master, come with me to the winch and drag the rope. The two of them rushed to the edge of the cliff. The greenwood winch was several meters away from the edge of the cliff. Li Yuebai tugged hard at the winch cable, while Xuanyang stared closely at the small boat by the pond. Suddenly, the water in the pond rolled and countless fish kept jumping out of the water. A huge vortex suddenly appeared in the center of Qingtan, like a bottomless black hole. The water in the pond rapidly swirled with the vortex, and the water surface continued to descend. The small boat was like a leaf on the water surface, constantly swaying up and down with the fluctuation of the pond water. Shi and Li tightly held onto the cable to prevent the small boat from being pulled into the water by the vortex, and kept loosening the cable to slowly sink with the pool water. At half a pillar of incense, Li Yuebai was already exhausted and sweating profusely. He lowered his head and looked down, and the water in the pond had disappeared. The terrain at the bottom of the pond was leaning towards the center from all sides, and a large hole appeared in the center. The water in the hole was dark blue, with rippling waves and unfathomable depths. On one side of the cave is a river channel connected, with blue stone hanging walls on both sides, which is the underground river that leads to the bottom of the pond. Li Yuebai looked towards the bottom of the pond, where fish, shrimp, clams, and shells were scattered among the sand, stones, water, and grass. Skeletons could be seen everywhere, and these skeletal forms were ferocious. It can be imagined that the owner had suffered before his death. Each skull had a thumb-sized hole directly above it, which was very frightening. Xuangan said, "Let's go to the bottom of the pond first. The 7-star monster's nest is at the end of the hidden river at the bottom of that cave. Let's go down and take a boat." Li Yuebai grabbed the cable with both hands and used the flying kiwi fishing for the moon posture, with a light posture, quickly sliding to the bottom of the pond. Looking at Xuangan again, she jumped straight down from the high cliff, like a light silk flying gracefully down. After flying down to the bottom of the pond, Xuangan smiled brightly and said, "My little girl is just a lonely and wild ghost with low moral standards. The ghost's body is light in 3 or 2, just jump off without any harm. The cable is only prepared for the young master, otherwise there would be no need to worry so much." 9's Soul Startling. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The two of them untied the cable of the small boat and dragged it into the hole. Many strange fish that looked like long eels crawled out of the eye sockets of those skeletons. Li Yuebai saw this and asked, "Why do these skeletons have a round hole on their heads?" "It's strange." Xuangan replied, "They are all passers-by who were killed by the 7-star monster. The 7-star monster transformed into an old lady, piercing their skulls with her sharp teeth in her mouth and sucking on their brain marrow." After that, Xuangan pretended to have a strange expression and smiled, "Aren't you afraid that the young lady will play tricks again?" Li Yuebai laughed heartily and said, "It is my duty to save people from danger and destroy this harmful cave. Otherwise, reading 10,000 books of poetry would be in vain. If you continue to deceive me, I will fight to the death and never let you go. But now that the situation has come to an end, 3 parts are human, 7 parts are fate. I can only obey fate. I feel that what Xuangan said later is true." Xuangan smiled knowingly and asked, "Oh. Why does the young master think that the little girl did not deceive you later?" Li Yuebai said, "Xuangan talked about her family background twice before and after, and her demeanor was completely different. When she recounted her background again, tears welled up in her eyes, crying about her life's ups and downs. She couldn't help but be moved by those who heard it." As Xuangan said, the Qingshan Dingshui stone lock also had a profound meaning. Xuangan smiled happily and said, "The young master is indeed intelligent and observant. It's a privilege to meet you today. I'll listen to your arrangements later. There are various harmful demon mechanisms hidden in this 7-star cave, so be extremely careful." The two of them dragged the small boat to the edge of the hole. Xuangan jumped into the boat, took out the paddle board, and handed it to Li Yuebai. Xuangan held a long knife and sat at the bow of the boat. Li Yuebai was responsible for rowing the boat and slowly sailed towards the deep part of the river. The river surface is about several zhang wide, and the water is not turbulent. The stone walls above the head are full of inverted white milk stones, with various forms. As we entered the depths of the river, the light gradually dimmed. Xuangan sheathed her long sword and took out a pearl from her arms, the size of an egg. She held the pearl in her hand and it instantly shone brightly. The ship was as bright as day, with several layers of spherical light rising and falling outward, emitting a faint and charming light. Under the faint light, Xuangan appeared even more charming and charming. Li Yuebai looked at her and a wave of inexplicable sadness surged in her heart. She said to herself, in the midst of countless mountains and valleys, deep pools and caves, rescuing this unfamiliar lonely soul female ghost. If Bing Qian knew about my current situation, she would definitely be hanging my heart. However, when rescuing someone in danger, she probably wouldn't blame me. Xuangan noticed that Li Yuebai was staring at her in a daze, feeling a wave of shyness in her heart, and turned her head. Li Yuebai also felt a bit embarrassed, lowered her head, and just continued rowing. Traveling dozens of feet further, the river surface became open. Xuangan whispered, "Shu, young master, don't row the boat for now. No matter what you hear, don't speak up." Li Yuebai nodded and agreed, remembering Xuangan's advice. Li Yuebai pulled the boat towards the left bank of the river, and the two of them supported the stone wall on the bank, pushing the small boat slowly forward. After walking more than 10 zhang, a rustling sound suddenly came from the opposite bank of the river on the right side. Moving forward several meters, a woman's sobbing voice came from ahead. Li Yuebai heard it vividly and was extremely shocked, as if it was Chen Bingqian's voice. A figure faintly appeared in the dark river ahead, with a huge reef towering in the middle. A woman leaned against the boulder, and her figure was blurry in the darkness, unable to see the specific shape. She looked very sad, with her back to Li Yuebai and Xuangan, sobbing incessantly. Xuangan gestured to ignore him and ask him to continue moving forward. As the two continued walking 6 or 7 zhang away, Li Yuebai could see that the woman's voice, appearance, and behavior resembled Chen Bingqian. Li Yuebai was waiting to see what was happening when the woman in white choked softly and said, "Li Yuebai. Li Yuebai." Li Yuebai was both surprised and suspicious. It was too mysterious to meet Bing Qian in this remote and desolate place. He was about to ask a question when Xuangan suddenly rushed over and covered Li Yuebai's mouth with her hand, her expression filled with fear, indicating that he must not open his mouth. Xuangan's move was too sudden. Li Yuebai was panicked and lost for a moment. She accidentally pushed a stone block from the stone wall into the water, and the falling stone fell into the river with a loud thud. The crying came to an abrupt end. The woman in white suddenly turned around, but her body remained motionless. This ghost had no facial features on its face, only a layer of pitiful white flesh wrapped around its head. The ghost disappeared with a whoosh. The sound of chirping came from the river, and the waves of the water churned. Suddenly, a large blue monster appeared, resembling a giant python. This monster was several feet thick and jumped out of the water more than 10 feet high. Its neck was split in half and it had 2 heads, like a double-headed python. One is a man's head, with a fierce face, while the other is a beautiful woman's head. Her head and 4 eyes are green under the pearl light in Xuangan's hands, with blood mouths wide open, sharp teeth like knives, and a long tongue stretching and swallowing, making a terrifying chirping sound, which is heart-wrenching. The 2-headed python monster stood tall and meandered forward, constantly sniffing along the river, as if not noticing Shi and Li. Whenever it approached the pearl in Xuangan's hand, it was like a beast afraid of flames at night, hurriedly avoiding it, obviously afraid of the light emitted by the pearl. These 2 strange heads kept changing their faces, sometimes transforming into the appearance of Li Yuebai's parents, and sometimes into the faces of other relatives and friends. Their eyes were dark and their faces were like zombies, causing Li Yuebai's hair to stand upright in awe. Li Yuebai wanted to draw her sword to defend herself, but Xuangan signaled to Li Yuebai to remain silent. The two continued to support the stone wall and pushed the small boat forward quietly. The 2-headed monsters wandered back and forth in the small boat, but were blocked by the pearl light several times when they tried to approach it, so they disappeared into the water without a trace. The two continued their journey for about half a pillar of incense. Suddenly, a jade and stone staircase appeared above the left stone wall in front of them. The stone staircase spiraled upwards, and Shi and Li tied their small boat to a reef below the staircase. One in front and the other behind, they walked upwards in a spiral along the stone staircase. After walking several tens of meters, a circular hole appeared above my head. The stone steps below the hole were slippery, and after the water receded, water and grass were scattered everywhere. However, the top of the hole was very dry. When the two of them entered the hole, it was a very deep cave, which was several meters wide and high. Shi Xuan breathed a sigh of relief and said, "It's so close." Li Yuebai saw her speak up and couldn't wait to ask curiously, "What kind of monster is that? Why is it afraid of the pearl in your hand?" Shi Xuan said, "Young master, how could you know the power of this 7-star pond? That monster is called Gui, a descendant of the ancient demon tribe. It has a snake-like head and 2 heads. The one on the left is called Soul, and the one on the right is called Qi Soul. It and the 7-star monster usually consider each other as sisters and often guard the dark river at the bottom of the pond leading to the 7-star nest. However, because it has been living in a dark underground river for a long time and cannot see the sun, its eyes cannot see things, but it can detect the spirit of living beings within 100 zhang, perceive the appearance of its relatives and friends, and become their appearance. Then called out the name of the person. If the person didn't respond, let it go. Once it responded, it would sense the person's whereabouts in its mind, even if it had wings inserted, it would be difficult to escape. Time is running out, and fighting against it in that dark river won't bring any advantage. Besides, is afraid of the light emitted by the little girl's candle dragon, Divine Pearl, so we can't do anything about it for now. It's better to go. Li Yuebai couldn't stop nodding and said yes. 10 Gluttonous Tai Sui. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The two continued along the cave, with flickering fluorescence ahead, unlike the previous darkness. Shi Xuan put away the pearl and walked forward for a while, revealing a circular cave door directly in front. Let's take a look at the material of this door. It's neither jade nor stone, let alone copper and iron. The entrance of the cave glows brightly in the darkness, with a relief animal head in the center. Its blood mouth is angry and its form is fierce and ferocious. Looking up, a large stone plaque can be seen, on which 4 large characters are engraved. 7-Star Cave. Shi Xuan stopped and said, "Young master, the colorful magic cup is at the end of the passage behind this door, filled with mysteries. Please listen to my instructions, otherwise there will be no return." She approached the door, muttering something in her mouth. In an instant, a red light burst out from the top of the cave door, sweeping Shi Xuan from top to bottom. The light shone on her body, making her transparent. She only heard a boom sound, and the cave door opened wide. The 5-colored dim light inside the cave emanated, and the two of them unsheathed their swords, holding their breath and stepping into the cave door. As soon as you enter the cave, you will know that there is no doubt about the wonders of the world. No one has ever heard of the treasures and monsters inside the cave. The halls inside the cave are clear and shining, and the eaves and corners of the pavilions are adorned with various precious pearls, shining brightly. The indoor tables and chairs are all made of large fish bones, with exquisite and unparalleled styles. Under my feet were various colored stones measuring several feet square, some green and some dark red, emitting a faint glow. The color of the stones alternates every once in a while, which is very strange. The passage is tens of zhang wide, with clear streams flowing on both sides and bottomless. The passage meanders forward, with a tall stone pillar standing every 7 or 8 zhang, with the upper end embedded in the cave roof. The ceiling of the cave is elliptical in shape, with sparkling fireflies and dense clouds. It is dim and indistinct, resembling a starry figure, becoming increasingly ethereal and eerie. The surface of the stone pillar is carved with many skeletons, and the 7-star monster lies on the bed of the bones. Several monsters worship below, creating a eerie and terrifying scene. The surroundings were shrouded in mist, and the passage looked several hundred meters long. Every 100 meters, there was a square gate made of fish bones. The lintel of the gate was adorned with incredibly sturdy boulders, which were built to reach the top of the cave. The square gate is embedded in the stone wall that spans the passage, forming a barrier. The door is divided into 2 leaves, covered in golden turtle crocodile dragon carvings, and the bronze snake-headed door ring is even more eerie. At the end of the passage, the 7-colored light flickered and the mist was steaming. Li Yuebai whispered, "I'm afraid it's the place where the 7-colored soul-locking magic cup is placed at the end of the passage." Just as she was about to move forward, Xuangan stopped and whispered, "The road to the magic cup has never been passed by me. I used to be taken back into the cup by the 7-star monster. I was careful and noticed that this demon head only walks on green stone slabs. We should also step on green stones to avoid triggering the mechanism. This demon head will definitely set up an evil mechanism to guard the passage, so be careful." Shi and Li walked side by side into the passage, only stepping on the green square stone. When they stepped on the square stone, it instantly turned indigo blue, and the stripes on the stone kept flickering. The 2 of them leaped forward, and in the blink of an eye, they arrived at the foot of the fishbone gate, but there was no abnormality. The 2 of them cautiously pushed open the long door, and not far in front of the passage was a long black wooden food table. The table was cluttered with cups and plates, filled with gnawed bones and flesh, and the air was filled with a foul smell that made people nauseous. A plump body can be vaguely seen piled up on a stone chair behind the food table, without its face visible. Xuangan is holding a knife in front, and Li Yuebai is holding a sword at the back. The 2 of them guard each other and move forward, walking more than 10 zhang in front of the food table. Suddenly, they hear a squeak sound, like the sound of a mouse. The 2 of them were stunned, with 2 loud bangs. The door behind them suddenly closed, and they clenched their swords and stood ready to face the enemy. After another moment, there was no movement. An arm suddenly stretched out from behind the desk, and Wang Shi and Li kept waving their hands. This hand was as big as a dustpan, hula stretched out, revealing 5 steel knife-like claws, several inches long and shining with blue light. What's even more shocking is that there was a big eye in the palm, showing an undisguised greedy expression. Shi and Li were waiting for their clones to leap away when a yellow meatball popped out from behind the table. The meatball monster's arm extended its claws and thrust it down. Xuangan blocked with a horizontal knife, and her sharp claws and blades clashed, causing sparks to splash. Li Yuebai took the opportunity to strike at the monster's arm with a sword, and the meatball monster pursed its long arm into its body with a beep, forming a round and rolling meatball. It rolled aside and flew several meters away. Shirley exchanged glances and leaped onto the green stone slabs on both sides, staring intently at the monster again. The 2 of them gasped for air. The monster had no head or ears, and the 5 arms on its round yellow painted body were as thick and thin as those on its legs and arms. At the end of the arm, there was a large hand like a dustpan, with the palm centered on the big eye, which looked annoying. This monster tightly grasps the stone slab with 3 arms, and extends the other 2 arms upwards. It raises its hands and keeps twisting, with its big eyes pointing at Shi and Li respectively. Its expression is very fierce. Xuangan exclaimed, "This monster is the Tai Sui under the 7-star old demon. It's very impressive, you need to be extremely careful." Before the words could be finished, Tai Sui's 2 arms grew several zhang long and attacked Shi and Li respectively. Xuangan rolled over in place, dodged a blow, and Tai Sui's right hand flew into the air, instantly bouncing back. Li Yuebai turned his right shoulder to the left, and his strange hand hissed as it pierced into the stone pillar behind Li Yuebai. Before Li Yuebai could draw his sword and cut it out, the body of the gluttonous Tai Sui followed the big hand nailed to the pillar and swung it fiercely. Li Yuebai quickly turned over and suddenly heard the sound of torn fabrics. This monster tore off a corner of Li Yuebai's long shirt on the right side, causing him to sweat profusely. The two of them looked up and saw the gluttonous Tai Sui climbing onto a stone pillar. His round and rolling body was nowhere to be seen, and he had stretched into a slender headless golden python, measuring 5 or 6 zhang in length. A round opening is exposed in the center of both arms, concave inward and showing a blood-red color. Inside, dense layers of sharp teeth can be seen, constantly making sharp and piercing, squeaking sounds. Li Yuebai turned around and shouted to Xuangan, "I will confront him head-on and have a divine shield to protect him. You wait for an opportunity to attack him from behind, so that he can't look back at both ends." After hearing this, Xuangan jumped into the air, climbed onto the pillars, and then flew over several stone pillars, circling behind the Tai Sui. Then, the two of them engaged in a life-and-death battle with the Tai Sui between the stone pillars in the passage. The gluttonous Tai Sui is like yellow lightning, with its body twisted like a long dragon for a moment, shrank into a ball of flesh and rolling on the ground for a moment. Its 5 arms and claws stretch as fast as lightning, grabbing, gouging, striking, slicing, and hooking. If accidentally hit by it, it will surely shatter its muscles and bones, and its flesh and blood will fly wildly. The two of Shi and Li dared not slack off at all. Xuangan focused on fighting against the 3 arms of Tai Sui in the lower part of the battle. Li Yuebai swung her sword to kill the 2 large hands on top of it, and their swords swung like the wind. Whenever Tai Sui withdrew his arms, they immediately counterattacked, but unfortunately, Tai Sui dodged and killed exceptionally quickly. The battle lasted for dozens of rounds, and it was difficult to determine the winner. During the battle, Li Yuebai saw the gluttonous Tai Sui trampling on the red and green stones, ignoring them. He thought these stones were indistinguishable and no longer as cautious as before. The gluttonous Tai Sui suddenly combined his arms left and right, and Li Yuebai hit Spring Flower falling into the water, with a move. She flipped her body backwards and landed steadily 4 zhang away, her feet stepping on the red and green stones. Xuangan couldn't help but feel worried, but there was no abnormality. The two of them held their breath and raised their swords, preparing to take action and continue to fight against the gluttonous Tai Sui.